Hello there, Joe Molloy here, Wednesday Night Rugby. For reasons I am not going to bore you with, Monday and Wednesday Night Rugby are going very much down the podcast route as opposed to in full on YouTube. So fear not, Monday Night Rugby, Wednesday Night Rugby, still very much happening, but in full on podcast. So very simply, you can click this box right here and that will take you straight to the podcast. Equally, search Off the Ball in your podcast feed and you will find us. So that is the plan going forward for the foreseeable. This evening, we have Gerry Thornley of the Irish Times. We have Fiona Hayes, Grand Slam winner. We talk for the guts of 35 minutes or so on the podcast about Warren Gatland, about Eddie Jones. There is a Heineken Champions Cup preview bonanza as well. So that is waiting for you in full on podcast. Here, though, a YouTube version just to whet the appetite coming your way. For anyone just tuning in, Fiona was just making the point last week that she doesn't want to see these games at Limerick anymore. She wants to be in Porky Queeve. It suits her. So Limerick will come out in force for this. You weren't saying that, by the way, before you get in trouble.
I know. You'll get me killed.
Yeah. Want to leave the car engine running there, Fiona?
Limerick will come out in force. Just in broad terms, with the South African contingent now, this looks about, and I think, Gerry, you were saying this in the paper during the week, this is about as competitive as this tournament has ever been, really. Fiona, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. No, look, it's really exciting. There's some great matches. The players are back from international duty. I just think this is probably going to be the best year of this cup. We were talking before about maybe, that it's not as appealing to the crowds anymore. I think this is the year where they'll bring the crowds back in. It's got the ability to play just a year out from a World Cup. Guys are going to want to play the best rugby they can going into the Six Nations, and the South African players obviously have a point to prove as well. So I think we're going to see some of the best games we've seen, and this year with the South Africans in there, it's just going to make it immense. And obviously with the English teams as well, I've been watching a couple of them, even Sale in particular, who are home to Ulster. I think the last three games I've seen them take a step up in how they're playing as well. They beat Quins and Bristol last weekend, so there's definitely going to be really competitive games in there this year.
Yeah, big picture. What's jumping out to you, Gerry?
Well, also, as well as the addition of three South African teams, the return of Saracens, by some distance the top dogs in English club rugby when it comes to both Europe and the Premiership, and now running away in first place. And what is otherwise quite a congested table. I think there's 9 points between the playoffs and the bottom place.
They're 9 from 9, aren't they?
Yeah, they're 9 from 9, and Sale are second with 7 from 9, I think. They've only lost at home to Harlequins and away to Saracens. So that shows you what a tough draw Ulster had. The other thing about this, there are three prime contenders in France to try and win the Heineken Champions Cup. Okay. La Rochelle, the holders, Toulouse, the 5-time winners, and Racing, 3-time semi-finalists. Look at the teams all three picked last week, and they're saving their big guns for this opening round of Europe. They all want this title. They're the three outstanding candidates, and they're also the three that the three Irish provinces all got in the group stages as well, which shows you what a tough draw it is. It might be helpful that Racing have moved their game because of a concert they're hosting in their La Défense Arena to Le Havre, and I think that makes it more of a neutral venue, which might suit Leinster, who are on a real high after themselves winning 9 from 9, and again look to pick at the Irish contenders. On a broad level, I think Ulster could be very, very dangerous, but that's a tough draw with Sale Sharks away first up and La Rochelle at home. They need to get at least one win out of those two to be in the mix. There's no doubt they play a brilliant brand of rugby, score tries through an outstanding young Indigenous backline, but they have to have been a little scarred by blowing a 22-3 lead against Leinster with just 14 players. Munster carrying some momentum. That looks like close to a 50-50 game with Toulouse, despite how well Toulouse are doing. Toulouse had Dupont available last week after his suspension was halved. So the difference with him not playing and now playing at Thomond Park on Sunday is enormous, because he's just a generational wonderful player, and he can change the game.
Puts 1,000 bums on seats, doesn't he?
Yeah, and also they were so concerned about this week rather than last week that he was on a bench. Of the 8 players on the bench, they had 162 caps between them. So they just brought him on for the last half an hour to keep him ticking over. And then Ramos, Ange Capozzo, the young Italian kid who's joined them. They make their one or two little subtle signings to lose it to keep it ticking over. Yeah. They never have a big overhaul, really. Ramos himself and Mathis Labelle combined with Dubon, who then gave the final try-scoring pass to Ntomac, who actually looked his best yet this season because he'd missed all before the November internationals with injuries, and he's back at out half. And Thomas Ramos is just playing the rugby of his life, full-back or out half.
Every single name there is rock and roll.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. 5-time winners, 21 times champions of France. They're Real Madrid stroke Barcelona combined of European rugby.
Yeah, and with, I think as well, Gerry, like signing Jack Willis, I know it was all
Yes.
done subtly. I mean, Willis, I think he's just been immense for Wasps when he's played. You know, he's a big ball carrier, and I've seen a couple of Toulouse games as well. And Roman Intamac's little brother Theo Intamac at 8 has been absolutely outstanding as well. I mean, he's just getting gain line off the back of the scrum. He's been really, really good. So their back row are quite scary as well.
Yes, his big little brother, I think, is the. So how will Munster cope then? What do we think, Fiona? Let's jump off there at 3:15, Thomond Park against this rock and roll Toulouse team.
Look, they're building momentum. I think they've tightened up a few things. I thought the scrum was a little bit better last week as well when you had Ryan and Lockman in there with Scannell. That's going to be a huge area in the game. I think set piece, obviously, Toulouse are going to attack that and especially that scrum. You know, so I think it's going to be a really good rugby game. I think Munster are on the up. Unfortunately, they didn't start it well against Edinburgh the last week. When I was watching the game, I was getting a little bit nervous. But I think once they settled down, they played really, really good rugby. I thought Coombs had another good day at the office. So the big players are starting to stand up now. There's confidence there. Murray's gone back in training. Earlsey will have been around training fully in camp. So I think they'll have a little bit of confidence going into it. I know they're at home in Thomond Park, but people don't expect them to win off the back of how they've started this season. So there is a little bit of pressure off with that, and they can go out and try and get their style of rugby and implant it on that Toulouse team, who, if we remember, the last time they played, it was a draw up in the Aviva, and now they get to take them down to Thomond Park. So that will be the huge Thomond Park effect as well, Joe. There, I'll be in the crowd screaming.
Yeah. Are Munster in a better place, Gerry, than when they played Toulouse at the Aviva last season?
That's a good question, and it's really almost impossible to answer until around tea time on Sunday. Yeah. So, but you would be worried about the scrum. You know, it's not largely changed, and the scrum was a huge issue in that drawn game. In fact, but for the scrum, they would have won that match. We always had the theory that Munster might well have won that game if they hadn't given over Thomond Park to Ed Sheeran, and I know that he calls the piper, pays the tune, and they had needed the money, whatever else. But would they have got over the line? They didn't, of course, the previous year in the last of 16 when they were beaten 40-33. But again, there were no fans that day. So now we're back at Thomond Park with fans. Okay. So if Munster get a good start and really bring the fans into the game, they have every chance. And what was encouraging about last week, which I thought was their best performance this season, was the attack. Particularly for that Calvin Nash try, the shape around all the different ball carriers, the way they switch left, right, and then the finish from the short Joey Carberry pass. Nash is playing superbly well. Haley's back this week. What do they do? I mean, Nash, Shane Daly's playing really well. Simon Zebo, Keith Earls back in training. So they've got some selections now. For once, Archie getting a little bit. He's getting a few welcome headaches. Antoine Frisch has only played 3 games and been the 3 they've won. I think he was probably signed as a 12 to dovetail with Malachi Feketawa. Now it's come to pass that they're playing Joey 10, Rory Scannell 12, and Antoine Frisch, who's a real ball player, at 13. And it's almost suiting, I think, Mike Prendergast's attacking game even more. But this is the acid test coming up against Toulouse and the power that they have. I just about, if you held a gun to my head, I'd probably, golden rule of the Heineken Cup, never back against Munster in Thomond Park.
That's still the
with
golden
crowds.
Rule? That's still the golden rule?
Yeah, until proved otherwise. Okay. With crowds.
Frisch has been name-checked by everybody I've heard speaking about Munster of late, Fiona.
Yeah, he's just been really, really good. There was a lot of talk pre-season about Feketawa. He spoke during the week how he's not really happy with his own performances. Things aren't gelling for him. So I think there was no pressure on Frisch at all. He just came in, and he seems to be, I think it was especially in that South African game, I thought he was really, really good. He's going about his business defensively, but he's a playmaker in attack. He's offering a little bit more. He's not doing those 50-50 offloads. He's not losing the ball in the midfield. He's just retaining. And then obviously he's quite creative. So it is exciting. And to have someone with like Scannell's calibre inside him, who's just been around that Munster setup for a long, long time, a lot of people wouldn't talk really, really highly of, his playing ability. But I think he's just been there. He's tipped Munster around the place for the last couple of years. He's a really good guy. And I would imagine they seem to be building some sort of really good partnership together, and Prendergast should be really happy with how they're playing off one another. Yeah,
you're seeing that shape that people are talking about. Gerry mentioned it there. Alan Quinlan on Monday on the AM show, he mentioned he was much happier with the shape he's seen as well in attack.
Yeah, definitely in attack. I mean, there's a lot of options on. Leinster have been doing it for years. When you looked at Munster, sometimes in the ball carries, especially when it was shifted out past 12, it looked like there was maybe only one option. It was like a tip on or a pull back behind, 2 options max. Where now you see in their shape, there's 3 to 4, and that keeps the defensives guessing. You know, everyone's carrying square. There's dummy runners going off shoulders. So it's really, really exciting, and it's changing in how Munster play. Obviously, at the start of the season, some of those passes or running lines didn't stick, but it seems to be gelling a lot better, and especially after that Edinburgh game last week. So it's kind of peaking at a good time, I think.
So there you go. That is a taster of Gerry Thornley and Fiona Hayes on this evening's Wednesday Night Rugby. The full conversation is available on podcast. Like I said at the top of the video, we're migrating over to podcasts for Monday and Wednesday Night Rugby. So you can click this box right here, or equally just search Off the Ball Rugby in your podcast feed and you will find us there. So that is the plan going forward. Thanks very much.